Picture this: a vast empire in chaos. The king is far away. An impostor claims the throne. In the shadows, a young man sharpens his arrows and his mind. His name? Darius. This is the moment Persia's future would be forged in silence and fire. In 522 BC, Cambyses the Sioux ruled Egypt, the last great conquest of the Achaemenid Empire. But back home, trouble brewed. A man claiming to be his brother, long thought dead, declared himself king. The throne was no longer secure. Persia was cracking at the core. Far to the east, in Bactria, a boy named Darius was being trained for greatness: horse riding, archery, honor, truth. His father, a noble governor, ensured his son knew both the sword and the scroll. One day, these lessons would shape a world empire. Cambyses never made it home. On the road, he died, stabbed, perhaps by accident or maybe by despair. With the king gone, the impostor Gaumata ruled. But in secret, Darius gathered 6 nobles by torchlight. They vowed to strike back, to save Persia. Under a moonlit sky, the conspirators struck. Gaumata fell in a fortress deep in Media. Darius declared himself king, not by blood alone, but by the will of Ahura Mazda, the god of light and truth. The throne was his. The real fight was just beginning. The empire didn't kneel easily. As Darius took the crown, rebellions erupted like wildfire. Babylon rose. Egypt stirred. Eastern provinces broke away. Persia seemed to shatter. But the new king didn't just fight. He reorganized. He created satrapies, regional governors, and order slowly returned. Think of a CEO inheriting a company collapsing from fraud. Darius didn't just defend his claim, he built systems like the Royal Road, 1,500 miles of stone and speed. Messages crossed continents in days, not weeks. Trade thrived. The empire breathed again. Darius didn't stop at roads. He built cities to last centuries: Susa, Persepolis, palaces of stone and gold. Materials came from India, Egypt, Ionia. Craftsmen of every tongue worked side by side. In stone and script, the king carved his vision of unity. One story tells of a Lydian merchant who sent a letter across the empire. It once took weeks. Now, with Darius's network, it arrived in 2 days, just in time to save a trade deal. For merchants and messengers alike, Persia had become a clockwork marvel. Darius taught the world, strength isn't in conquest alone. It's in order, justice, and vision. From rebellion came reformation. From chaos, a blueprint for empire. His legacy, not just carved in stone, but in every system that lasts, every leader who dares to rebuild. Darius's first test came swiftly. Babylon rebelled again. A man named Nidintubel claimed he was the son of Nabonidus, the last native king. He seized Babylon's walls, declared independence. To lose this city meant losing the empire's heart. Darius marched fast with fury and precision. Inside Babylon, the self-crowned rebel king celebrated. But outside, Darius encircled the city. He cut supplies, crushed nearby support, and prepared his elite troops. Within weeks, the city surrendered. Darius didn't just win the battle, he sent a message. Treason would be met with swift judgment. Even as he crushed Babylon, other fires burned. Egypt revolted under a man named Petubastis. In Parthia, Scythians rose up. It seemed each province tested Darius's resolve, but he didn't falter. He delegated, deployed satraps, and stamped out each flame one by one. To show strength and legitimacy, Darius carved his story in stone. On a mountain face at Behistun, he told how he defeated impostors and rebels. In 3 languages, Old Persian, Elamite, Babylonian, he made sure the world knew he was king by divine will, not deceit. In the Behistun relief, Darius stands with bow raised, enemies beneath his feet, hands bound. Behind him, Ahura Mazda floats above in divine light. This wasn't just art, it was propaganda, law, and spiritual declaration combined into one eternal monument. As order returned, Darius built. He created a coin, the daric, of pure gold. It carried not just monetary value, but imperial pride. Soldiers were paid with it, traders trusted it, even Greek historians called it the coin of kings. Stability had a symbol. But Darius wasn't done expanding. He turned west, toward the Aegean, where Greek cities stirred restlessly. When the Ionian revolt began, backed by Athens, it was more than rebellion, it was insult. Darius vowed he would punish those who dared meddle in Persian affairs. His army crossed the sea. Cities like Naxos and Eretria fell quickly. The Persians burned temples, seized tribute, and reminded the rebels who ruled the world. But then came Marathon, a name history would never forget, and a moment that shook Darius's dreams. At Marathon, the Greeks held high ground. Persian cavalry was stalled. On the 8th day, the Athenians charged. Shield to shield, they pushed back the might of the East. In a rare Persian defeat, Darius's men retreated. His revenge would wait. Back home, Darius planned a second invasion, but time was no ally. He grew old. The next strike would fall to his son, Xerxes. Yet the legacy of Darius, the builder, the lawgiver, the king of kings, had already changed the world forever. Darius's architectural legacy spoke louder than any battle. At Persepolis, he designed a ceremonial capital to awe visitors and unite cultures, towering columns, halls for thousands, reliefs showing diverse subjects offering tribute. This wasn't just a palace, it was empire carved in stone. The Apadana Hall, Persepolis's crown jewel, could hold 10,000 guests. Foreign envoys passed carved walls showing Medes, Babylonians, Egyptians, and Greeks bringing gifts. Each figure reflected loyalty and diversity. The empire wasn't just feared, it was admired. Construction at Persepolis wasn't only about glory, it was about workforce harmony. Materials came from India, Egypt, and Ionia. Workers included Persians, Lydians, Elamites. Darius didn't erase cultures, he wove them into an imperial identity. He also improved infrastructure. The royal road linking Susa to Sardis spanned 1,500 miles. Couriers could cover it in 7 days. That's speed unmatched for centuries. Persian logistics would inspire future empires from Rome to America's Pony Express. Trade flourished from Indian spices to Lydian gold. The empire pulsed with exchange. Darius's reforms standardized weights and measures. His bureaucracy used multiple languages, Elamite, Aramaic, Old Persian, making administration efficient across cultures. Darius also left a spiritual mark. As a follower of Zoroastrianism, he believed in truth, Asha, over lies. Darius. His inscriptions often credited Ahura Mazda for victories, not himself. This moral governance made him more than a conqueror. It made him a philosopher king. His tomb at Naqsh-e-Rustam, carved high into a cliff, was simple yet powerful. A cross-shaped facade, divine symbols above, and a vision of Darius before the fire altar. No golden excess, just a ruler asking history to remember his truth. Though history remembers his victories, Darius's true legacy lies in what he built, not what he destroyed. A law code, roads, trade, harmony among nations. He ruled not just with might, but with mind, not just by force, but by faith. Darius died in 486 BC. His son Xerxes inherited both crown and unfinished wars. Yet even as battles changed, the structures Darius created endured. He didn't just command Persia, he defined how an empire should work. In a world where kings often rose through blood, Darius rose through brilliance. He began as a distant noble. He became the king of kings. And centuries later, when empires fall and dust returns to dust, his name still echoes through carved stone and memory. Few empires managed such diversity without collapse. Darius ruled over Persians, Babylonians, Greeks, Egyptians, Indians, and Scythians. He didn't erase their identities. He absorbed them. In his empire, difference wasn't weakness. It was strength. One inscription even tells us where the palace stones came from. Ivory from India, gold from Lydia, cedar from Lebanon, lapis lazuli from Bactria. His architecture wasn't just regional, it was global, centuries before globalization had a name. Darius's coin, the daric, became a symbol of stability. Where it circulated, order followed. Even enemy states used it. It was more than money. It was a promise that the king's reach was real and his word was gold. He built a canal linking the Nile to the Red Sea centuries before the Suez. On its banks, an inscription read, "I am a Persian, I commanded this." With every mile of waterway, his empire flowed stronger. Darius's administrative system was so effective, Alexander the Great later adopted it. Satraps, royal messengers, standardized taxes. Centuries passed, but the model endured. Proof that good governance lasts longer than conquest. Herodotus, the father of history, once described Darius as wise, deliberate, almost merchant-like in managing empire. Where Cyrus was gentle and Cambyses was cruel, Darius was balanced, both ruler and reformer. Not all stories praise him. Some said he lied about Gaumata to justify power, that he silenced rivals, that his inscriptions were more myth than memory. But even critics admit he rebuilt what could have fallen. Among the ruins of Persepolis today, tourists walk where envoys once knelt. Birds perch on columns Darius raised. In cracked stones and faded scripts, the echo remains. One man, one vision, held many nations together. His name, Darius, meant he who holds firm the good. And that's what he tried to do, hold firm order, truth, trade, and legacy, not always perfectly, but boldly, and in his way, eternally. Darius the Great wasn't born a king. He became one, through vision, through will, through roads, laws, and carved stone. And long after his enemies faded, his empire still taught the world how to rule. Even centuries later, when Rome rose and Athens flourished, echoes of Darius's systems remained, a network of governors, standardized law, highways, diplomacy. He was, in many ways, the blueprint for future emperors. In Darius's time, writing meant power. From Behistun to Persepolis, words were carved to last longer than breath. His voice, translated across 3 languages, speaks still. I am king by the will of Ahura Mazda. He respected truth, but also used myth. By calling Gaumata an impostor, he erased Bardiya's memory. Was it clever politics or ruthless ambition? In empires, sometimes truth must wear a crown of fiction. Despite doubts, no one denies this. Without Darius, the Achaemenid Empire might have collapsed after Cambyses. He didn't just inherit an empire, he rescued it from implosion, then made it stronger than ever. He ruled for 36 years. In that time, the world changed. Persia became not just a power, but the axis of civilization. From India to Libya, his voice echoed through governors, soldiers, traders, and scribes. In Greek tales, Darius is the great challenger, the eastern threat. But in Persian memory, he was the just king, a builder of peace, not just war. Sometimes history changes based on where you stand. Though he never saw Athens fall, Darius set the stage. His son Xerxes would carry the fire across the sea, Thermopylae, Salamis, Plataea. But the spark, the ambition, it all began with the father. Darius wasn't just a conqueror, he was an administrator, a storyteller, a man who believed order came from clarity. His rule shows that empires are not just won on battlefields, but built in ink, stone, and law. His empire would last 2 more centuries, and when Alexander conquered Persia, he marveled at what Darius had left behind. Roads, law, culture. The sword broke the crown, but the foundation remained. Today we walk ruins and read stones, but in every road, law, and system built to unite people across borders, Darius lives on, not just in history books, but in how we define what it means to rule with purpose. Darius believed in earned loyalty. He didn't demand worship, he demanded order. A subject could keep their gods, language, customs, as long as they paid taxes and obeyed the king's law. It was tolerance centuries ahead of its time. His scribes recorded events in 3 languages, not just for clarity, but so no corner of the empire could claim ignorance. Language, in Darius's world, was control, but also inclusion. Every region was allowed a degree of autonomy, but treason was not forgiven. Darius showed mercy, but only to those who didn't mistake it for weakness. Rebels learned that kindness had limits. He understood symbols, a crown, a road, a relief. They weren't decoration, they were power tools. Darius built narratives as carefully as he built walls. His image wasn't just seen, it was believed. He even minted propaganda. The Daric coin bore his likeness, a bow in hand, symbolizing not just wealth, but readiness. Every coin a quiet whisper, the king sees, the king protects. Persepolis was his masterpiece, but it was also unfinished. Later kings added walls, columns, halls. Yet Darius's vision remains at the foundation, his blueprints in every stone. In foreign lands he was feared. In Persia he was father. The dual identity of a great king, both storm and shelter. His people bowed not just to power, but to order and predictability. He died in his palace at Susa. No grand fanfare, just a ruler returning to the earth he once ruled. His tomb carved in stone, not to impress but to remind. Empires fade, but ideas endure. Scholars still debate him. Was he a usurper or savior, ruthless or rational? Perhaps he was both. Perhaps greatness requires contradiction. That's why we still talk about him 2,500 years later. If you visit Persepolis today, run your fingers along the stone. Hear the silence where drums once beat. And know, those walls remember, not just the king, but the moment one man held a world together.